Hello and welcome to Good Day Talks. Happy 2/23/22. Yesterday would have been a little better, 2/22/22, but that's all right. So, starting off today, I just want to go over, talk about a book that I actually just finished reading last week. This Abolition of Sex. It's by Dansky. How the Transgender Agenda Harms Women and Girls. And I'm going to go over just a handful of things from the book. I do recommend picking up the book. It's fantastic. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it on Barnes & Nobles. And there's a few other, the Book Depot. There's a bunch of different places you can actually pick it up. I don't know if they physically have it at a Barnes & Noble. I haven't been to a Barnes & Noble now in a long time since most of them have been closing. But I do recommend picking up the book because it did go over different details of this new agenda that I honestly had no idea, wouldn't even thought of having. There's a few things that have, after it came out, not the book, but after this agenda came out, that I was against. And the first thing I was against was allowing boys and men into the women's restrooms and then also into the locker rooms of girls, especially at schools. And so one thing that happened recently is there was a boy in Loudoun County, but I think he was 14 at the time. And if you Google search boy in a skirt, you can look up both a bunch of different articles out there about it. But what happened was he was in the girls' restroom because he identified as a woman and therefore went and assaulted a girl that was in the bathroom. The father of the girl actually went to the board and tried to speak out against this because it was kind of hushed up and silenced. The kid was moved to another school. But what happened is after he was moved to the other school, he ended up doing the same thing, where he went into the bathroom with a girl and assaulted her as well. This is a big problem. Girls need to be able to feel safe in private spaces. I figured something like this was going to happen. I just didn't think it was going to happen maybe as soon. The issue is that when some of these reports don't ever get notified. Nobody ever reports the incident because it's embarrassing. When things are embarrassing, a lot of people just hush up and keep it internalized. And I hope that anybody that's been assaulted, please speak out because this needs to happen. Everybody needs to know what happened, and it's a part that you can then hopefully get through the process that you need to get through to get back to your regular life. This is nothing that anybody should have to live with their whole entire life. And allowing people to do this makes it an even bigger problem, especially when it's a federal thing, when it's federally mandated due to the president just writing it into law. This is a problem. The other problem that we have is teaching our kids at such a young age about things that they shouldn't even be questioning or shouldn't even have ideas about. The issue is now, today, especially with how accessible pornography is, it's going to younger and younger ages and then essentially getting kids hooked on ideas that they shouldn't have until they're older and be able to process it. Generally, it used to be once kids go through puberty, that's when they start figuring out they like girls, they like boys, whatever the case may be. When we're starting to teach our kids in kindergarten about things that they shouldn't even be thinking about, they should just be thinking about going to school, learning a little bit of information, learning how to write, learning how to hopefully learn cursive, and also learning how to read in these couple of years. We're injecting different ideologies into the children. There's no reason to be teaching our kids really young about certain adult things. So, first one is going to be California wants to teach kindergartners about gender identity. Kindergartners have no idea about gender identity. They don't even know what gender they are, essentially, besides they know they have to go to the bathroom at such a time. That's really the only thing about gender that they know. Beyond that, most parents have no idea their kids are pushing, their schools are pushing insane transgender ideology. This is another thing. We shouldn't be discussing this until they're able to maybe understand it. There's no reason to be teaching our kindergartners about they, she, he, me, free to be. Why is this a thing? We really should start to ask our school boards what's going on. The issue, the school board for Loudoun County, actually, the one parent was actually there discussing what happened with his daughter, and they hushed him up. They didn't want to hear what he said. They actually called the police that surrounded him. Then they ended up tugging at his arm to get him away from being able to speak. He freaked out, and then he was tackled by the police. This is an issue. You can look up the video. I didn't want to put it on here just because honestly, it's a shame what's happening. And beyond that, now parents could be criminalized for protesting against masks and woke school boards. Now, I know I've read some stories where parents were actually speaking violent, and they were going to have violent action against these school boards. Now, that's a problem. But the issue is the school boards need to be able to hear the parents speak what they want. They need to actually say, hey, you're teaching our kids things we don't want you to teach, and maybe you should change it. Let's have a discussion and figure out what values you, as the government official, being the public schools, are teaching our children. So this needs to happen. We don't pay our taxes for them to just teach whatever they feel is necessary for our children to learn. That's not true. Beyond that, then, the cancel culture in full force tried to get J.K. Rowling off for her comment where she was actually saying there's male and female. There's two different sexes. There really is. Scientifically proven. There's two different sexes. If you cosmetically change yourself to be a different sex, that's essentially your own personal choice. I'm a firm believer of everybody has the right to do whatever they want with their body. 100% agree with that statement. But we need to get down to the brass tacks, I'll say, which is men are men, women are women. So there's one difference, super difference later on in life. Men generally have to be inspected for prostate cancer and polyps in the colon, different things like that. And females go through a different side where they have to there's potentially hysterectomies that happen, and then also there's ovarian cancers and breast cancer, which is more common in females. The issue is that we have no idea if you go through the transition, if anything else is going to change. Your body is generally, if you're a male, going to have more testosterone, and if you're a female, have more estrogen. These are true statements. Now, both bodies do actually have they have testosterone and estrogen running at the same time. It's just at different levels. So males have higher degrees of testosterone, females have higher degrees of estrogen. Biologically known by scientists for a very long time now. Seems like we're regressing. We're trying to say that we can change that. And I don't know if that's really the case. If you're getting cosmetic surgery, then have to take pills for the rest of your life. I feel like that's going against nature. So if we're going to go against nature that we haven't been able to conquer yet, just wait until the next hurricane comes through, the next earthquake happens, and then maybe we'll humble ourselves a little bit that we can't conquer nature. Other person that's been kind of chastised has been Dave Chapelle. Dave Chappelle's great. Well, one thing that's great is J.K. Rowling, after this had happened, she actually sold more books, which good for her. I hope she continues to sell books and speak the truths that she believes. Dave Chappelle, I hope you're doing well as well, and I hope Netflix never cancels your special and you continue to produce more specials out there. Speaking your truth should be what people do on a regular basis. We've gone far from that, and we need to start going back to what people believe and hearing people out instead of just yelling and talking over everybody. Next, then, is another thing that's really kind of confused me from the beginning. When your child is born, it's generally born with either male genitalia or female genitalia. Why we're confusing our child even more so by giving them an X makes no sense to me. Also, here's the states that currently have the X gender in case you were planning on moving. But after that, then, this seems to be one thing that a lot of different people are doing, which is called virtue signaling. And what they're doing then is they're saying how good they are and how everybody should praise to them because they did something, especially when they've just gone and destroyed somebody's livelihood because they spoke out against an agenda. Now, this is just a quick video. Alan Watts, philosopher, Zen Buddhist, psychotherapist, is really spoken a lot of great words, and I'm so glad that they're still available. YouTube has playlists available for Alan Watts, as well as After School has actually a handful that they've done the illustration for. And so here's a quick video about virtue that I want you to see from Alan Watts and After School. Here you go.
You see, the reason you want to be better is the reason why you aren't. We aren't better because we want to be. Because the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Because all the do-gooders in the world, whether they're doing good for others or doing it for themselves, are troublemakers. On the basis of kindly let me help you or you'll drown, said the monkey, putting the fish safely up a tree.
Exactly. So be careful whenever you're watching someone, if you're following somebody and they're doing nothing but virtue signaling, you may want to question, do they really care about the people that they're claiming they are, or is this to better promote themselves because they have some selfish idea about what they should be doing instead of what could they be doing to help people? There's more people out there that need help, and to select a certain group to promote them to such a higher level than everybody else makes no sense. We're all human beings here, and we have to all figure out how we can best cooperate together and make the best society. I know our politicians aren't helping at all. Honestly, we'll have further discussions about the politicians and what I feel about that. But moving on from there then, another thing that outside of the locker rooms and the girls' bathrooms is our inmates. So California now must supply women's prisons condoms due to biological men housed in their prisons. Okay, so, and I don't know if it was on accident or on purpose, but the next article that I've got, so this one was July 30th, 2021. This one here is July 31st, 2021. So one day later, California prison inmate pregnant after state lets biological men into women's prison. This is not fair for women. This is not fair at all. They're already going to prison, and on top of that, the prison system has failed a lot of people. The issue is they go to prison, they do their time, and then most people end up going back into prison because they didn't actually learn any skills or do anything beneficial while they were there. Of course, there's different people who get out and are very successful, but we need to really look at our prison systems as to what we're doing to our people. Why are we allowing this to happen? Shouldn't we be trying to get people to be a benefit to society when they get out? Maybe give them a new skill, give them a new idea on how to actually act in society that's going to be good for them and good for everybody else. I feel like there's more that we can do instead of just going to the profit value where we need to fill the prisons so that way the private organizations get as much money as possible. This is something we need to discuss, and we need to have open conversations about it moving forward. But after that, sports. So sports for women, if we continue to let boys play in women's sports, we're not going to have any women's sports. Now, if we want to have a full subcategory where we have men's sports, women's sports, and then trans sports, fine. But allowing men to play in women's sports is not going to benefit anybody. The issue is, this one here in particular, transgender woman who last year competed as a man wins NCAA track championship. So think about all the girls that competed that year. Think about all the girls of 2019. Think about all the girls that year that put in so much extra effort just to get that extra second or two off of their time, to be smoked by some dude that comes in there and just wins it all. This is not fair. We need to get back to having separate things. As far as we understand that men and women are different athletically and different physically. This is true. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of women who can do a lot more than I can. That's 100% true. They're faster, stronger. Sure, 100%. But if you take the same people, so if you take a male and you take a female at the same time in life, give them the same exact food, give them the same energy level, give them the same protein levels, give them the same everything without adding in estrogen and testosterone or steroids, generally the male is going to be stronger, potentially faster than the female. And that's just biological differences between the way that the bone structure is, between the way that the muscle density is, between the way that the actual bodies are designed. So the hip structure, the hips are different in males and females. And most of that has to do with giving birth, I believe. But outside of that, there's different factors that play a role to give it a competitive advantage to a male versus a female if given the same exact stipulations throughout the whole entire life. These are things that people should discuss again. There's no reason why these girls that actually do put in the extra effort to be stronger, be faster, be smarter, all these different things are being just taken away by some boy who didn't even have to try that hard to be able to get to that point. This boy, the other thing is, and I've got the next one here that I'll talk about, which is in Tokyo. The Tokyo Olympics allowed Laurel Hubbard to compete in weightlifting. Okay, he didn't actually do that well. However, the fact that this man is now an Olympian in a female sport, there's no questions. I mean, it just doesn't. I don't understand what's going on. Everybody should be talking about this and talking about the potential ramifications of men doing women's sports. It's a true statement. We should probably take a real quick look at that. Next one then is in Upenn, the University of Penn State. You end up having Leah Thomas, who just crushed the records. He got a world record for the actual pool itself. There was recently just happened too, I think in Harvard, just set a new world record as well for that pool, and is just dominating the sport. Women need an ability to play in the sports competitively with each other, and that's the same as men. Men deserve to play in competitive sports with other men. It's a true thing. There's no reason why the girls who place very well don't have a scholarship opportunity now, or have lost any opportunity to maybe go into the Olympic team because they're number 2 or number 3 now, because the boy decided to play on the girls team after competing as a male for years and not doing as successful, obviously. So moving on from that though, is this Family Guy sometimes gets it great. They actually sometimes put a good picture of like what we're seeing and what's going on. And so this is actually what all of us, everybody else, has to kind of kowtow to with this new movement. And I think it kind of explains a good idea of what everybody's seeing. So here you go.
Excuse me, ma'am. No porn at the bar.
Oh, it's okay. I'm transgender.
Oh, I had no idea. Do whatever you want all the time.
Exactly. Do whatever you want all the time. And we're just supposed to sit back and just take it. It's getting to the point where it really is... people have to discuss it. It's a true thing. We have to start talking about it in person. We have to start talking to everybody that we know as far as what's going on with this whole thing. Why are we starting to go down this path where people are disagreeing with the sex that they are? Is it because of all the extra pornography that's out there? Is it because of all the strange advertisements that are out there that are very over-sexualized? Is it because of the teachers telling all these kids that they can be whatever they want, which is not wrong. A kid can do whatever they want, but as far as changing the gender that you were born as, it's a little more difficult without medical assistance. So one thing is, and I remember as a kid seeing Junior and thinking that it was a good comedy, which we all thought that it was. I feel like he's making that same look when he saw this come out. Pregnant man, pregnant person emoji comes to Apple iPhones. I'm sure a lot of people are excited about that. Now, the big issue with that is think about your kids now when they're scrolling through emojis, because that seems to be the only way a lot of people discuss anything anymore is via text, is emoji. Now they can decide if they're a pregnant man or not. So more confusing things for our kids. Maybe we shouldn't have all this extra going on and go back to maybe some simpler times when there was literally two things. There's male or female, and we can go back to some other rights that some people are starting to get removed as well. Couple of good things anyhow. Some states are actually taking it into their own hands to tell the school boards to not teach different things, and then also to stop the doctors from doing transition surgery for our kids. So under 18 years old, I'm fairly certain that all my growing up was you weren't an adult until you're 18. You couldn't make your own decisions until you were 18. You were not on your own until you were 18. The issue is there's a couple of stories which there's one in the book where it talks about a 9-year-old child who the mother thinks he's going through transition. The father knows he's a boy. And so the mother wants to have puberty blockers and start estrogen treatment. And it's actually happening already. Some of these schools are actually taking it upon themselves without conversing with the parents at all and calling the child by a different name, so their new identity name. And then on top of that, putting them into clubs to where they can communicate different ideals that are kind of against what the parents want. So there's some school boards out there that really shouldn't be doing what they're doing. But then there's also some parents out there who are essentially mutilating their children. And if you can think of a different word besides what the surgery actually does, please let me know. But otherwise, that's what's essentially happening. You're taking your child, who's either male or female, and telling them that they're not, and accepting that because they feel different about themselves, that they're not that sex, and it's okay. We can go through surgeries and we can get you fixed. We can get you fixed. Don't worry, you'll be okay. This is a problem. We used to have a time where people actually embraced their sexuality. People actually embraced being a male or a female. And I'm not talking about what attractions you have in life, like if you're attracted to the same sex. There's nothing wrong with that. It's honestly whatever you feel like doing in your personal life is your personal life. It seems like instead of being personal now it's being shown out to everybody. One thing that I had no idea until I read the book was actually about so if you're interested in the same sex, right, and you're a female, so you'd be looking for the same sex. There's different apps out there for males and for females to go into either lesbian, gay, or bi, and different things like that. So I didn't even think about it, but if you're a lesbian looking for the same sex girl and you're scrolling through this app, there's boys in there who are claiming that they're women but yet still have male genitalia. This is something I wouldn't, honestly, if I didn't read the book, I didn't even know anything about. But everybody should have the right to be able to look for what they want in life. And that's really the key. If somebody's sexually attracted to X or Z or Y, let them be attracted to X, Y, Z. It's none of our concerns, none of your concerns, none of my concern. However you want to live your life, live your life. And you should have the right to do that. The issue with this is claiming that you're not a sex goes against humanism, really. It's very anti-human, and that's another anti-human woke movement that we're going through, which makes zero sense to me. It's going anti-science, which if you watched, everything that went with the pandemics, I guess we are against science, and science changes all the time. However, schools or different states are actually putting it out there to where they're trying to make this where you cannot take your child and have them go through surgeries, cosmetic surgeries, to change their sex because it's not biologically so. You're sterilizing potentially children for the future, and we still have a lot of questions, I'm sure, about what these actually drugs that we're putting into our kids are doing for their future development. We don't know if there's some cancer that now they're going to have because instead of getting testosterone, they got estrogen, or vice versa. We don't know if it has anything to do with the couple of main cancers that men and women deal with. What if it accelerates that? Is this something you want your child to go through, or do you want your child to succeed and be the happiest that it can be with accepting its body and accepting who they are? These are questions that we really should ask, and really, I'm thankful that some of the states are stepping up and kind of trying to stop this from happening. Last one down here then is Florida representative files bill to criminalize gender reassignment surgery. So they're actually planning on taking the doctors and putting them in prison if they do this to the children, which is good. Honestly, no doctor should be able to castrate and mutilate a child for this, because it's, from what it seems like, it's more of a psychological, you don't feel like you belong in your body. I can understand that to a point. However, if it's something that is in your mind and not physical, maybe there's something else that we can do. But moving on from there, though, it actually is amazing. There's some stories, and in Ohio, which is the first one, tax dollars pay for sex change for inmate. So inmate Robert can become inmate Michelle. I don't know if Robert or Michelle has been moved over to the female prison yet, but regardless, this was in Ohio that happened. Biden says the VA to offer taxpayer-funded gender transition surgery for veterans. So the veterans are going to be able to get it at taxpayer dollars. This right here is back in 2012. I just pulled up, again, I've got all of my articles in the description. But this here talks about how there's actually, if you go through the surgery, you can then get a tax deduction on how much it costs you. So paying less taxes for cosmetic surgeries. And then the last one is for Medicaid. So Medicaid, it came out originally that Medicaid won't cover it if it doesn't seem like it's a dire need or like a medical necessity for you to have the surgery. But then it came out later that the decision found that gender-affirming health care is medically necessary and therefore may not be excluded. So Iowa tried to stop it in 2019, but I don't know what happened with that afterwards. But regardless, so there's Medicaid will cover it, which, why is the government pushing to sterilize kids? And why is the government pushing to change what potentially could happen? So is it for lower population? Is it so that way, like, there's a great book actually. It's called Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. And he did revisit it afterwards, to where he actually went over everything from his book that kind of came true already in the direction that we were going. I'm reading through the revisited, but the main book, the Brave New World, is everything is then governed by the state. So there's no pregnancy, nobody gets pregnant, nobody has their own children, everybody's available to everybody else, so it's just sex everywhere. And it's just interesting to see how we could be heading down this path. And in Revisited, I started the first chapter at least talks about depopulation, which is a goal of a lot of different governments out there, is depopulation. They think we're overpopulated even though we're nowhere near it. But when it comes down to the book, I recommend everybody read it. It really is good. That in 1984, you'll see kind of the blueprints of where we're headed for our government control that they want. But honestly, Medicare and Medicaid and insurance companies and all of this shouldn't be paying for cosmetic surgeries. If you need to go through a cosmetic surgery because you feel different than what you are, then that's your own personal choice. That's your own opinion. So maybe that's something that the taxpayer shouldn't pay for. After that, these are the three different things that generally happen when you're going through a transition. Is to start with, you get puberty blockers, hormone replacement therapy, and then finally surgery. So these are the quick costs of what it kind of costs to go through this process. $4,000 to $25,000 a year for just puberty blockers. Now, puberty blockers were originally created with a good intentions. Of course, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. But say a child goes through life and they're developing puberty a lot earlier than everybody else in their class. So I can understand the need to maybe use that potentially if the child is having a very difficult time going through puberty when no one else is, which I couldn't even imagine. It probably is a terrifying time. So puberty blockers were originally intended for that. Now it's being used to stop people from naturally going through their puberty to then to switch to a different sex. These are questions we still have to ask what the long-term ramifications of taking this medication is. Next then, hormone therapy. So $130 to $240 per month. Generally, with insurance, $30 per month. So, okay, $30 per month, $360 a year, and then you get all the estrogen and testosterone that you may need instead of letting your body naturally do it themselves. And then on top of that, when you want to go through the full transition, would be surgery costs. So for the bottom half of your body, up to $25,000. For the top half of your body, $7,800 to $10,000. Now the issue with this whole scenario is, look at who benefits from giving our children a lifelong stream of medication and then surgical intervention. So the surgeons make money from this, and the medical industry makes some money from this because they supply the different products. And then on top of here, Big Pharma makes money. Of course they're on. Of course big corporations are going to be all about this because it's money, money, money for them. It's always have to look at who's profiting, always have to look at who's benefiting from changing the way society is. So moving on from there, you've got some doctors debate whether trans teens need therapy before hormones. I recommend everybody discuss it as many times as you can until you're blue in the face, because there's got to be something better than going through a lifetime of surgeries and pharmaceuticals. It can't be healthy to do that. It's beyond anti-human, and I think everyone needs to have a further discussion. There's also this right here, this article is transgender surgery isn't the solution. A drastic physical change doesn't address underlying psychosocial troubles, which is another good question. Are people just socially awkward? Are people outside of their norm there? Do they only have friends that are girls? Do they only have friends that are boys? That's making them feel like they don't belong, and so they need to go through the transition? These are questions we need to ask. These are questions we need to actually sit down with people and figure out what's actually going on. Why are we somehow going against humanism? People are human, and that's it. There's generally just two sexes, male or female. One thing we need to discuss with a lot of people, which I didn't think we needed to. But lastly, I want to thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a good day. And I've got Douglas Murray with a final message that I think everyone should listen to. It's not long, it's pretty quick, but I think you'll enjoy it. So thank you again, and have a good day.
People with bad ideas are very good at organizing. They're very good at making placards. They're very good at cohering. They're very good at shouting the same banality over and over again. Good people don't do that because they tend to believe that communication matters, that in fact shouting the same thing over and over again is an insult to the listener. It presupposes your listener should be beaten down rather than engaged in a dialogue, in persuasion. So a lot of Americans are just silent because they're not going to organize and have their voice heard in a mass demonstration or a protest. But perhaps more important than that is just how people make their voice heard in their lives. Nothing saddened me more in recent years than hearing from American friends how hard it is just to be at a dinner table with relatives and friends these days. How hard it is to talk now in America. That's my experience. I was in America in many states before the election. And I found that Americans couldn't even talk over a dinner table together anymore. I think it was P.J. O'Rourke who said somewhere, everyone always wants to save the world, but no one will help mum do the dishes.
Yeah.
But how about more Americans learned how to speak to each other again, rather than learning how to shout at other people in the street? That'd be a start, wouldn't it?
People are afraid.
They are, but I think that the fear is overstated. My experience always is that people say, oh, I'm worried about saying this thing, I don't know if I should do this. And I've always said, you have two options in your life. One is to say the truth as you see it, and the other is to grow to despise yourself more and more.